What's up, everybody? This is John with John Fair Innovations, going in a bit of a different direction today. Today I wanted to talk about League of Legends, specifically the pro scene, because Worlds 2021 is just around the corner, and I'm so excited. I absolutely love the League of Legends pro scene. I used to play League of Legends quite a lot. I don't get to play it half as much as I would like anymore, but I still follow religiously the pro scene. So I thought it'd be really cool to talk a bit about the groups. I am not saying I'm an expert. I am silver trash. I do not pretend to be anything above that. But all I'm saying today is I just wanted to have a little bit of a chat, my thoughts on the group, what you guys think. And obviously, we all have our different perspectives, whether we're maybe LCK fans, LPL fans, LEC fans, NA fans. Maybe we're fans of the PCS, for example. So we're all going to have different perspectives on what we feel strengths and weaknesses of different teams are. And that's perfectly fine. It's just sports. We can enjoy our own sports. So just make sure that in the comments, don't flame each other. Don't flame me. These are, as I said, just my thoughts and opinions. Could be absolutely wrong. That's what's great about sports, is that, some random team could come around and win it, and then, we are all wrong. So, yeah. So, firstly, start off with a little bit on the playing stage. So, we've got two groups, unfortunately, because the VCS is not able to compete again. So, they're going back to the five teams in a group format. It's a bit disappointing. I love the VCS. I remember there was a game with the Gigabyte Marines where I forget who it was, but they played like this funnel Nocturne jungle strat, and like the Nocturne was level 6 at a ridiculously early. Like the whole team was just basically helping him farm, and he was ulting really early. It was really cool. So really disappointed that the VCS is not there. They always bring in the spicy picks and the spicy comps, so hopefully they're back next year. But as it stands, we've got two groups. So it got split up between Pool A's and Pool B's. So in the Pool A, we had Halmore Life Esports, otherwise known as Chovy Life Esports. We had LNG, Beyond Gaming, and Cloud9. And Halmore Life and LNG got put in together in the same group, which is pretty cool, because they were definitely the two teams that people felt were the strongest in all the play-ins. Obviously, Chovy and Tarzan are absolutely insane. It's crazy to think about how good that Griffin roster was, and how they didn't actually accomplish half as much as they should have. That's a different story for a different day, right? So in Group B, we had Beyond Gaming of the PCS, the second seed there, and Cloud9, which was the third seed of NA. So also in Group A, from the Pool 2 seeds, we had Infinity of Latin America, Peace of Oceania, Oce Boys represent, and of course the Red Canids of Brazil. And in Group B, we had Unicorns of Love, CIS, very, very well known. They're probably one of the most well-known minor region teams. I think a lot of people always have a soft spot for them, especially European fans have a massive soft spot for the Unicorns of Love. Galatasaray Esports of the TCL. TCL always is also quite strong as well. And we've got Detonation Focus Me from Japan, who, while Japan haven't had the greatest showings in the past, Detonation Focus Me at MSI really showed some strength. They took a game off Cloud9. They were agonizingly close to taking a game off Damwon, defending world champions. So that group is going to be heavily contested. So this is how I see the groups panning out. Obviously, I got green as the first seed, teal as the second seed, yellow as the third seed, orange as the fourth seed, and red as the fifth seed. So they play each other. I believe they only play each other once. I could be wrong on that. I think last year they only played each other once, and then it went into the best ofs format. So the fifth seed, they got automatically eliminated. 4 played 3, then 3 had to play 2 from the opposite group. So I think from Group A, I think it's going to be heavily contested between Harmer Life and LNG, who's going to top it. I do give it to Harmer Life just because I think Chovy in a best of one, I think is a lot more reliable than LNG. I think LNG in a best of 5 would beat Harmer Life, but in best of 1, I just think that, Chovy, pull out the Silas, pull out one of his picks that he's just gonna smurf on, and I can't see LNG. I can see LNG getting quite surprised by just a Chovy stomp. So that's why I think it's that way. That's not me necessarily thinking that the LNG is worse than Harmer Life. I just think in a best of 1 format, I like Chovy. Like I would bet on Chovy most times in a best of 1 format. Then I feel like it's probably going to go the 3rd seed. I feel like it's going to go to Infinity. Having said that, I do feel this Red Canids and Infinity are somewhat close to one another. And of course, as much as I really want Peace to do well, I just think the Oceanic region has been really affected by the changes to it, and the fact that NA basically took all our good players, which is unfortunate. So I feel like this is how it's going to go. I think Harmer Life is going to be the 1st seed to go through. I do think LNG will be the 2nd seed, so they'll have to play the best of against the number 3 seed of Group B. With Group B, I do think Cloud9 may be the best team. I think like Beyond Gaming is pretty good as well. They took games off PSG, and I think PSG is a very strong team. So I do think I do actually believe that Beyond Gaming will be our number 1 seed here. Just like last year where we had PSG be the number 1 seed. I think Doggo is absolutely insane. He showed so much talent at MSI. And again, just like Chovy, I think Doggo in a best of 1 is going to be a bit too much for some of these teams. I think then next is going to be Cloud9. Just because, again, I think there's too much talent on Cloud9. I don't think Cloud9 is going to get very far in the tournament, like once they get to the group stage. But I think in this sort of scenario, we will get to see Perks, and Sven, and Fudge, these players be able to, kind of flex a little bit on weaker regions. Now, I tentatively put Unicorns of Love here, but I don't know. I'm just not sold on Unicorns of Love. Like, I feel like these three could easily swap around. I'm gonna put Detonation Focus Me here because I do think that they are quite strong, and I would not be surprised if they come 3rd. This is not saying I think Galatasaray is weak by any means, and as I said, this could easily change. This could easily be in any order here. In fact, I could see a world where C9, in fact, actually ends up having to go through the best ofs in order to qualify. And I see a world where if they end up, so say, for example, if, we saw Detonation Focus Me, they overperform and C9 has to be here, well, then I would actually see C9 being eliminated just because I think if they had to face LNG in a best of or Harmer Life in a best of, that they are not going to make it through. But as it stands, I think it'd be very... I think they have enough talent to be able to just get through purely on individual skill alone. So this, of course, then leads us to the group stage. So for the group stage, I'm making the assumption that, of course, Harmer Life, Beyond Gaming, LNG, and C9 make it through, which means, of course, C9 has to go to Group A. Group A, of course, has Darmon Gaming, FunPlus Phoenix, and Rogue. Rogue, I feel like they've already probably been eliminated from groups the moment they got drawn in that group, because that's going to be tough. Damwon Gaming, I think, is going to be very hard to beat this year. I know a lot of people see some weaknesses in them, want to see a lot of weaknesses in their bot lane. Certainly can be a problem with them, but a lot of people believe Jin is going to be meta again, and if things like Jin are meta, Ziggs are meta, Ghost can AFK farm while Beryl roams over the map, which is what they did last year, absolutely dominated. Khan is so underrated. He's one of the best LCK top laners and one of the best top laners to ever play the game, if I'm being honest. But purely because of the lack of international trophies, especially being from the LCK, he gets a bit more of a knock than I think he deserves. And I do think, again, Damwon can really... They've got two of the best players in the world. They've got Showmaker, they've got Canyon. You know, like that top side is going to be hard to beat. As long as they don't draft silly, I find it very difficult for them to lose many games. And it's why I put them ahead of FPX. As insane as Doinby is, FPX just seem to lose the games that matter. And I don't think this can be understated. Like, they both splits, they dominated, and then in the finals, they just crumbled. Like, they got beaten, and both times it felt like fairly comfortably, I might add. Like, it wasn't like it was difficult. Maybe I'm remembering the RNG series wrong, but I just feel like I remember both series was pretty easy. Like, EDG beat them pretty comfortably, and I know I remember that for that much. It was 3-1, I believe. It's just, it's just something about FPX. Nuguri is gone back to the O2 power spike coin flip lane Nuguri, which we saw previously, which means he's still insane, but last year he was just much more consistent than he was this year. So much so he got benched. And again, if you're talking about Damwon versus FPX, the meta just seems like, if we're dealing with, assassin junglers, these mechanically like really reliant junglers, to me that just favors Canyon even more. It favors people like Canyon and Tarzan even more, because they're just so gifted as mechanical players. I actually think that if C9 ends up in this group, assuming it goes the way it would, they actually would go against head of Rogue. I am not a fan of Rogue at all. I know people are like, oh, they're best of ones, they're a best of one team, they're so good at best of ones, but their mentor is just gone. Like, you saw them on Twitter, like, they were already, like, I know they were sort of memeing, they're trying to have a bit of fun, but it kind of felt like they were already defeated before like group, like, it even be announced. They're like, oh, watch as we get, Damwon and FPX in our same group. And I think that sort of mentality is not good to see from a team that, really didn't perform well in playoffs, didn't perform well against the really good teams in the LEC. So and I just think that Cloud9 will probably take games off them. I can really see a world where Rogue goes 1-5 or does the TSM 0-6. Now we move on to Group B, which would have Edward Gaming, 100 Thieves, T1, and it would also have, because of the rules where you can't have more than one team from a region, the final team would be, I believe, Beyond Gaming. Now, if that's the case, so the final team would be Beyond Gaming. And if that's the case, I can see Edward Gaming topping the group. I do think then you would see T1. I think this one's very heavy top-sided. I think EDG, T1 are definitely going to get through pretty easily. Now, this might not make the NA fans out there happy, but I do think Beyond Gaming, again, will probably go over 100 Thieves. I think 100 Thieves are probably the weakest team that NA is sending, if I'm being honest. I think Cloud9, I think TL, and I actually think TSM were actually way stronger as teams than 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves seem to just, kind of... It almost felt like they were a bit imposters, like how they got there. I'm not saying they didn't deserve it. They absolutely did. And they played phenomenally, but I just don't know if, playing against teams like EDG and T1, and even a team with Beyond Gaming that has like someone as talented as Doggo, I just don't see them winning many games. And again, I could easily see a world where 100 Thieves go 0-6. Between EDG and T1, I think EDG is a strong contender. I do think that they are very, very likely to win Worlds this year. Viper is absolutely insane. That dude is nuts. Again, going back to the Griffin team, like you look at like this Worlds, you've got Viper, you've got Tarzan, you got Chovy, and they even had Lehens like back then. Like, it's just they had such a good team. Like, as someone who likes the LCK, I do like LPL and LEC and NA. I do watch all of them. But, as someone who watched Griffin, it just really, really bums me out to think of how far that team actually should have gone. But, yeah, I do think EDG will absolutely beat T1. Now, that's not to say that T1 is a bad team. I do question, though, that they're still doing this Teddy Gumayushi swapping between the two. Now a lot of people might say, well, that's a lot of strength, and it is. They have two absolutely insane ADCs, but I do think it's also a bit of a concern because you want to have a very stable team when you're going to Worlds, and I think the fact that they're doing that means they're not 100% sure which one they want to go with, whether they want to go with Teddy, whether they want to go with Gumayushi, which one the meta suits more. And I do think they might experiment a little bit in the groups, which means they might drop, which means they're more likely to drop games than, say, a team like EDG that is, absolutely insane at every position. So next we were going to have Group C, which has PSG Talon, Fnatic, LoL Never Give Up, and it's also going to have Harmor Life Esports. Now, it's so good that PSG now is considered a group 1 tier team, because you've seen their performances last year. Even last year at Worlds, they did not have their starting ADC, and their starting, I believe they had to wait. Was it their top laner? There was two positions. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember which ones. But there were two positions last year where they had to go through play-ins and then come out of play-ins and go directly into a group that had Damwon, FPX, and Rogue. Rogue very unlucky that they get that 2 years in a row. But PSG, they ended up third in that group. They ended up ahead of Rogue, despite the fact that they'd had limited practice as a full team, that they had changes in rosters because of the visa issues. And then to see them again at MSI, where they had to sub in Doggo, and they were able to come third at that tournament ahead of Mad Lions. They took games off RNG. They really showed that this is a region that is definitely above NA at the moment. And I don't think anyone, even in NA, can argue that this team is a lot stronger than the teams that NA is sending. So just a bit of PSG love, because I do hate that they sort of get a bit underlooked and people sort of, disrespect them a little bit. And I don't think that's a bit fair, because they are quite a good team. And I would not be surprised if they take some games with some top teams. Of course, you got Fnatic, very historic organization. Same with LoL Never Give Up. And of course, we've got Chovy Life Esports. Now, I think this group is very, very close. I do see RNG coming out on top. And then I do then see PSG coming second. And then Fnatic. And lastly, Harmor Life Esports. And the thing is about this group, I think there's any order you could have and you could make a justification. Like, you could have PSG first. You could have Harmor Life Esports first. You could have Fnatic first. You could have any of these teams going in first or second. Because all these teams, I think, are very close in levels. It's just how I think the games are going to go. I think PSG is a really good team, and they're going to... I definitely see them taking games off Fnatic, and I can see them taking a game off RNG, and I can see them taking games off Harmor Life. So that's where I see them being able to get enough wins to be able to get the second seed. I think RNG is the best team in this group. I do think they are a touch above everyone else. I do think Fnatic can get out, but there are a lot of question marks on this roster. Adam hasn't faced anyone half as good as Xiaohu. Niski hasn't faced anyone this year half as good as Chovy or Maple. Upset hasn't faced anyone that's as good as Gala. There's a lot of talent that Fnatic haven't come across in the LEC yet, and I just think that could really surprise them. Having said that, RNG, PSG, and Harmor Life could get easily surprised by Hylissang absolutely popping off. And the other problem though that I have with Fnatic is that their jungler is autofill. Like, Whippo, as great as he's been in the jungle, like, he's autofill, and he's going against these really good teams that play for their certain win conditions, and I think that could also be a massive issue for Fnatic. Harmor Life Esports, I want to put them higher, but honestly, it's Chovy or bust, isn't it? Like, literally, how far Harmor Life goes depends on how far Chovy can carry them. Like, and to me, that is not a good way for a team to win a lot of games. I think in the play-ins, the gap difference between Chovy and Deft, and even like someone who meme a lot about, like, people meme about Morgan, I still think he is better than going to be most of what we see in the play-in stage. So Harmor Life can get away with that in the play-ins, but against teams like RNG, PSG, Fnatic, Chovy's not going to get as much of an advantage, or he shouldn't get as much of an advantage as he would against some of these other lower teams, and I just think that that's going to be a big issue for Harmor Life. Having said that, Chovy, we know how insane he is, so if Harmor Life get out of this group, no one's going to be, wow, that's the greatest upset of all time. Everyone's going to be like, well, Chovy just doing Chovy things. The last group we have is another really contested one. I think the first two groups are very top heavy, like Dharma, FPX, EDG, Team 1. I think they're clearly tiers above the rest of the teams in their groups. Group C is very closely contested, and I think Group D is as well, where we have Mad Lions, GenG, Team Liquid, and of course the last one being LNG. Now, I think Mad should get out of this group. I don't think, though, Mad gets out first. And I can already hear the LEC hate. But the reason why is Mad Lions, their early game is really bad. Like, they lose every early game. Every time I see them, they're really fun to watch. They're really cool. Humanoid's insane. This team is really good, and when they come to the mid game and the late game, their macro decisions and the way they play team fights is absolutely insane, and that's how they come back. But their early games are really, really poor. Like they seem to lose every single early game, and I think this is going to cost them a lot of games, especially in a best of one, where you'll see teams like if a game is over, like the game could be over in like 15 minutes, 12 minutes against Mad, and then that's it. They've lost that game. We saw this at MSI. We saw their performances in best ofs versus their performance in best of ones. But even still, with their games against Damwon, like they had that series and everyone remembers it went 3-2 and Mad Lions played absolutely insane. Damwon also, the games that Damwon won were stomps. Like they were very, very stompy. And the games during the group stages, they dropped a lot of games because like their early game is really, really weak. And I think this is something that is really exploited in best of ones. And I think this is why Mad struggle in best of ones, because their early game is sometimes hard to come back from. You can, in a best of 5 series, for example, you can come back from that. Like you lose a game, you get stomped early, you can reset, you can go, what went wrong? And then you can work around that. But in a best of one, you don't get that same luxury to be able to rectify the issue. And that's why I think Mad will come second. I still think they have enough talent to be able to get second out of this group. Now, I feel like it's going to be... Between here and here is going to be LNG and GenG. And TL, I'm sorry to say, you guys aren't going to make it. I just... Not saying, like, NA teams are bad, but I haven't seen enough of NA teams, like, in the last few years. Like, you see, it's the last time an NA team was competitive at an international tournament was Cloud9 in, what is it, 2018, where they went to the semis. Like, I think that's the last time NA really had a team do well at Worlds. And until we start seeing that, we can't really give them the benefit of doubt that they're going to do well. Last year, their number 1 seed went 0-6 in a group that was very, very get-outable for them. Like, it was TSM, GenG, LDG, and Fnatic. I think I said all 4. But yeah, like, so it's a group very similar to something like this, and Group C, where you would expect them to be able to at least take some games. They went 0-6 though, and that's, yeah, when your first seed goes 0-6, and then you go to MSI the next year as well, and Cloud9 doesn't even make it to the semi stage. We see the PCS now being considered a tier above NA. I don't think they get that benefit doubt they used to. So that's why I'm putting Team Liquid there. And I do think these teams will be able to exploit issues that Team Liquid have. Cork JJ is really, really good, but there's only so much a support can do. Now, I think GenG is going to annoy a lot of people and come first in this group and do the classic first in the group and then get knocked out of quarters. It's the GenG special. And the reason why GenG always seem to make finals, always seem to make worlds, is because they have a very consistent structure. They have very good core players. Like, you look at their roster, and their roster is actually really good. You've got, Rascal. Rascal's a really good top laner. You've got Clid. Clid, there was a time where people were making the argument that Clid was the best jungler in the world when he was part of SKT. People argued that, he was the best player on that team and he was carrying them. And like his Lee Sin mechanics. Like, you've got BDD, who is an insane player who seems to struggle on the international scene, but he is an insane player. You've got, Life, who's a really good support when he's not trolling with, no flash in lane. And, of course, you've got ruler, the god ADC. Like, this team has so many ways that they can win, and that's why they will always be able to win best of ones. That's why they always do well in best of ones. That's why they always do well in regular season, because they have a very consistent pattern in which they play, which they draft towards, and which they are able to win games from. The problem is then when you get to the best of 5 series, then you start having to play against these really top teams, and these teams then start specifically strategizing for GenG's slow gameplay. You start seeing them start, to really struggle. And it becomes ruler or bust. And as I said about Harm or Life, when you've got it's one player against the world in a professional setting, it's almost impossible for that. So I do think GenG will top the group, but then I do expect them to get bundled out again in quarters, just like we saw last time. LNG, again, the same knock I had about Harm or Life. This team is very Tarzan or bust. And we saw last year a very similar situation with LDG, where you had Peanut, and it was Peanut or bust. And again, against lower teams, against not so good teams, this gap is going to be enough, and Tarzan is absolutely insane. People are even possibly saying he's better than Canyon. I'm not so sure about that one, but LNG, definitely expect them to take games. I would not be surprised if they came second or top this group. I just think that, again, against these top teams, especially against GenG and Mad, I expect them to lose a few games, just because I do see Elioya and Clid not getting gapped half as hard as, lesser teams that we will see in the play-in stage. So that's how I see groups, play-ins and group stage playing out. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? As I said, this is just my own personal opinions. I'm not an expert. It's just more about having a conversation, because I'm so excited for Worlds. So comment below, but always stay safe, be kind to one another, and I'll see you next time.